Good morning, sir. Good morning, classmate. This is the presentation of Group 3, Art Appreciation.
Visual arts. The church art outburst is Van Gogh's only painting of church in its entirety. He seemed to portray it as a place of doom and gloom, with dark windows reflecting the dark sky and not radiating any light from within. The shaky church even seems to sit its own shadow. Sabi dito, ang simbahan ng Aubers ay ang tanging pagpipinta ni Van Gogh ng simbahan sa kabuuan nito. Tila nilarawan niya ito bilang isang lugar ng kapahamakan at kadiliman na may madilim na bintana na sumasalamin sa madilim na kalangitan at hindi naglalabas ng anumang liwanag mula sa loob. In the last year of his life, Van Gogh created at least two paintings containing the church in Auvers. The church at Auvers, which he painted in June of 1890, and View of Auvers with church, which he painted in July 1890, are two of those. After his stay in the psychiatry hospital in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, Van Gogh settled in Auvers-sur-Oise, a village in the outskirts of Paris on May 12, 1890. During this time, he was still suffering from mental illness and emotional instability, which might explain the dark and gloomy feel of his painting, The Church at Auvers. Kaya sabi si Vincent van Gogh, isang Dutch post-impressionist na pintor, ay naging isang pinakasikat na impluwensyang figura sa kasaysayan ng sining sa kanluran. Sa loob ng isang dekada ay nakagawa siya ng humigit kumulang na 2,100 lalikhang sining at kabilang na dito ang humigit kumulang 860 oil painting na isa ang Church at Auvers.
Tintin.
The film medium came to Philippine shores as early as the late 19th century prior to the Revolution years and we called cinematographo. Late during the American period, Filipinos started to find newsreels and silent films as a new platform of regular entertainment as the said of medium slowly gained popularity. But it was only in 1917 when a Filipino built a motion picture company and released in 1919 what would be considered as the first Filipino-produced film. Ang isang pelikula na kilala rin bilang photoplay ay isang piraso na visual na sining na gumagalaw ng mga imahe upang gayahin ang mga karanasan at maghatid ng mga ideya, salaysay, perception, damdamin, kagandahan o kapaligiran sa iba't ibang paraan. Filmmaking is the process by which a motion picture is produced. Filmmaking involves a number of complex and discrete stages starting with an initial story or commission. Ang film ay yung pagsasagawa ng mga or pagsasadula ng mga minsan totoong buhay.
Performance,
Next.
a performance is an act of staging of presenting a play, concert, or other form of entertainment. It is also defined as the action or process of carrying out or accomplishing an action, task, or function. Para sa akin, ito ay isang pagtatanghal ng isang dula at maaari tayong manood upang malibang natin ang ating mga sarili at para mawala ang ating mga problema o matanggal ang ating stress.
Poetry performance. Life is such a wide umbrella, a word that covers many things, and everyone's experience of it is different. So let's narrow it down. Let's look to some. So let's narrow it down. Let's look to some poems about life that crack open how life can feel when when we're struggling and things are hard, but also ones that put and balm on that wound. There's a lot of shit going on right now. There's always is, but it's been particularly sharp and turny lately. And sometimes we need someone to put that into the words we just don't have in us. Words that make us feel heard and understood, that acknowledge our pain and how heavy life can feel. Next. And sometimes we also need to get put back together again to be reminded of the ways we can get through this, how we have overcome, and how, despite it all, life gives us hope. Poems like that serve as reminders that we are not alone. And there's still beauty to had, even if it's just in the form of the perfect line of poetry. Let this collection of poems about life help you feel heard, comforted, and give voice to whatever hurt or feel right now. Nakaranas ng bawat isa tungkol dito. Salitang nagpaparamdam sa atin, naririnig at naiintindihan na kumikilala sa ating sakit na kung gaano kabigat ang ating nararamdaman sa buhay. Ang ganitong klase ng tula ay nagsisilbing paalala na hindi tayo nag-iisa. Minsan, kailangan natin itong malampasan at pagtagumpayan sa kabila ng lahat. Ang buhay ay nagbibigay sa atin ng pag-asa at kagandahan na dapat natin taglayin.
Greek architecture. Greek photographer and architecture Pygmalion Karatsas meticulously captured the undulating shapes and dramatic lighting that batch the urban office campus in Athens. The lightning concept is based on creating urban nightscape with a strong visual identity where the fades structural from shimmer over the dark relative glazing. A continuous band of cool white light picks out the distinctive space of building wards around it and dissolve into darkness and ambient luminance. Si Pygmalion Karatsas daw ay isang Griegong pang-photographer at arkitektong may maingat na nakunan ang mga umaalon na hugis at dramatikong ilaw na nagpapaligo sa Athens Urban Office Campus. Ang konsepto ng pailaw ay batay sa paglikha ng isang urban nightscape na may malakas na visual na papakikilanlan kung saan ang structural form ng facade ay kumikinang sa madilim na reflective glazing. Pinipili ng tuloy-tuloy ng banda na malamig na puting iliwanag ang natatanging hugis ng gusali. Bumabalot sa paligid nito at kumukupas sa kadiliman at liwanag sa paligid. In contrast, the interior lift lobby areas, the spine of the 8-story building are revealed in a gentler and warmer tone at ground level warm light. The sculptural qualities of the landscape, while cool with light, accentuates the olive tree. Last but not the least, a subtle note introduced by the decade's shadow cast by the facade's plants on each level that move gently as they are caught in the night blaze. Wait lang. Ang interior lift lobby area ay ang gulugod ng 8 palapag ng gusali. Sa kabilang banda ay makikita sa mas malumanay at mas mainit na tono, habang ang malamig na puting liwanag daw ay nag-highlight sa puno ng olibo. Panghuling ngunit hindi bababa sa mga pinong anino na ibinahagi ng halaman na sa harapan sa bawat antas na gumagalaw ng malumanay habang sinasalubong nila yung simoy ng gabi. Maganda at banayad na tala. Next.
Dance. Where did Gangnam Style originate? Billboard. Gangnam Style was released on July 15, 2012 and is titled after the Gangnam area of Seoul, South Korea. Gangnam literally means river south. In this case, the Han River. Gangnam is also one of Seoul's wealthiest and most glamorous neighborhoods. Sa pamamagitan po ng pagsayaw, dito po natin na-express po yung ating pong mga feelings and emotion. At pati na din po yung kultura ng bayan o maging ang bansa. Katulad po ng Gangnam Style. Ang sayaw na Gangnam Style po ay nagmula po sa District of Seoul, South Korea. Inilabas ito noong July 15, 2012 at sobra po itong sumikat. Ang ibig sabihin po ng Gangnam, ito po itinatawag na River South. Ang Gangnam ay isa sa pinakabayaman at kaakit-akit.
Next.
Ancient literature. It is written work that was made at the beginning of the history when humans were familiar with writing or characters in the year 300 BC. Usually, ancient literary works takes the form of royal historical record such as legend, epics, mythology, poetry, ancient literary writings on the theme of stories of royal fame and glorification of the kings and goddesses who were worshipped at that time and ancient praise of ritual or royal law. Next. Everybody next. The art appreciation has four literary arts. This is ancient Mesopotamia literary works, ancient Egyptian literature, ancient Greek literature, ancient Roman literature. The first is ancient Mesopotamia literature works, literary works. The word Mesopotamia is formed from the ancient words meso meaning between or in the middle of and potamus meaning river, situated in the fertile valleys between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The region is now home to modern-day Iraq, Kuwait, Turkey, and Syria. Ancient Mesopotamia it is sometimes known as the cradle of civilization because it was where civilization first developed. The rich farmed land of the area is in the shape of a crescent on a map. Therefore, the area is also called the Fertile Crescent. The most famous and epic of all the Mesopotamian literature is the story Gilgamesh. The best-known piece of literature from ancient Mesopotamia is the story of Gilgamesh, a ruler of Europe, and his search for immortality. The Epic of Gilgamesh is a huge work, the longest piece of literature in the Akkadian, the language of Babylonian and Assyria. Second is ancient Egyptian literature. Ancient Egyptian literature comprises a wide array of narrative and poetic forms, including inscription on tombs, still narrative and poetic form including inscriptions on obelisks and temples, myths, stories and legends, religious writings, philosophical works, wisdom literature, biographies, histories, poetry, hymns, personal essays, letters, and court records. The, the ancient Egyptians viewed literature as a source of spiritual nourishment and a unique way to elevate style of expression. Refined literary style was a source of pride for the writer and appreciation and enjoyment for the reader. Ancient Egyptian literature tackled almost all aspects of life. Ancient Egyptian literature, which is one of the world's earliest, is an important component of ancient Egypt's great civilization and a representation of the people's life, culture, and beliefs. Greek, lit- Greek, Greek literature has influenced not only its Roman neighbors to the west, but also countless generations across the European continent. Greek writers are responsible for the introduction of such genres as poetry, tragedy, comedy, and Western philosophy to the world. These Greek authors were born not only on the soil of their native Greek, but also in Asia Minor, the island of the Aegean, Sicily, and southern Italy. Greek literature can also be divided into distinct periods: archaic, classical, and Hellenistic. The literature of the archaic era most centered on myth, part history, and part folklore. Homer's epics of the Iliad and the Odyssey and Hesiod, Theogony are significant examples of this period. Literary Greek begins with Homer. Since writing had not yet arrived in Greek, much of what was created in this period was communicated orally, only to be put in written form years later. For this ancient Roman literature, the ancient Roman literature was written in the Latin language. It maintains an enduring legacy of ancient Rome, it, its culture and its people. The earliest Roman literary works were historical epics retelling Rome's ear- early military history, while the later works were poetry, comedies, histories, comedies. These authors wrote about Roman society, politics, philosophy, mythology, and history. Most commonly, they wrote in poetic style that blended reality and mythology, reflecting how the Roman religion saw the gods as interacting with people in daily life. Roman literature had important cultural legacies. Next.
Next.
Santos Lope K. Santos, novel, Banag at Sikat, is a love story framed in the context of a political tale. Published in 1906, it became the fountainhead of social realism in the Tagalog novel and hailed as Asia's first prol- proletariat novel. It revolves around Delphine, a poor man in love with many, a capitalist's daughter. Next. Next po. Delphine, a poor man in love with many, the daughter of a capitalist, is a is at the center of the story. Delphine is a socialist and this Paul Felipe is an anarchist. Delphine wants residents to have more rights in terms of business and property. He believes that education has the potential to influence society. Ang ay nobelang isinulat ni Lope K. Santos noong 1906. Ito ay sinulat sa salitang Tagalog at isinalin sa Ingles na may pamagat na From Early Dawn to Full Light. Tinuring itong Biblia ng mga manggagawang Pilipino. Ang layunin ng nobelang ito ay mamulat ang lipunan sa ideyang pagkakapantay ng karapatan.
of the artist. At the heart of every artist is a sincere desire to communicate. The same applies to someone who loves when an individual expresses his or her appreciation, desire, or heart. The world becomes more beautiful, as Getan says, when scars become art, is what I consider to be the thesis of my artistry, attempting to cultivate art out of every scar. Next, Lakey. Lakey, next. I think that is what every creative is aiming to do in some capacity, and perhaps every human being trying to make sense of the pain. And I choose this song cause it was incredibly accurate, because loves may leave scars that will last your entire life, since it's like an art form that will live on until your last breath. What happened can be passed through the years and everything can be changed, but it will not forgotten no matter how long it's happened. Art can elaborate to music, and music can elaborate to love, or even everything. But for for me, arts and music is very suitable to love. Why? Kasi whatever kind of love you have in your past, magkakameron pa din yan ng space sa buhay mo. Kasi gaya nga ng kantang na pinili ko, when the scars become art, it means kahit gano'ng kasakit na nangyari sa nakaraan, if you really love that person, na kahit wala na at tapos na, the memories will always remain whether you like or not. Ang maganda kasi sa arts, ang music, itutulungan nito ang mga taong hindi kayang ipagsigawan ang tunay nilang nararamdaman. Kasi aminin man natin o hindi, may mga bagay kasi talaga na parang isang sining na kahit gustuin mong ibalik ay hindi pwede dahil mananatili na lang itong nakaraan.
Next.
Theatre or theater. This picture is a place or building consisting of a stage and chair, where audience gather to watch musical performance, public ceremonies, and so on. A region where a particular action occurs, a particular field of action, usually with reference to war. Theater is defined as a building where plays are performed or movies are shown, or refers to performance of plays or to a career of performing in a place. Ang ibig sabihin nun, ang theater daw ay tinutukoy bilang isang gusali kung saan gumaganap ang mga dula o mga pelikulang pinapanood natin, o tumutukoy sa mga pagkatanghal ng mga dula o sa isang karera ng mga paggaganap sa mga dula. Ang isang gusali ay maraming screen kung saan pinapakita ang mga pelikula, ay isang halimbawa ng mga sinehan. At ito ay going to see a play is an example of going to the theater. Ang pagpunta upang mapanood ay isang dula o isang halimbawa ng pagpunta sa isang panooring teatro. Thank you. Next. And the theater of that is a collaborative form or fine art that uses live performer, usually actors or actors, to show the experience of a real or imaginative event before a live audience in a particular area, often a stage. Parang kanina lang sa akin sinabi, yung sa theater dito, dito tinutukoy bilang isang gusali kung saan gumaganap ang mga dula o mga pelikulang pinapanood natin, o tumutukoy sa mga pagkatanghal ng mga dula. At dito rin ang isang gusaling may maraming screen kung saan pinapakita ang mga pelikulang ating pinapanood, halimbawa ng mga katulad ng isang sinehan, Ang pagpunta upang manood ng dula ay isang halimbawa ng pagpunta sa teatro. Thank you. Next.